That was my fight against Hitler. I'll show him who can go to the opera, who can't. So obviously that was always in me, yeah? I was living in Nuremberg. We lived in the middle of the town, Vierte Straße, one of the main thoroughfares, with my parents. I'm an only child, and led a fairly normal life until 1933, when Hitler came to power. The Nuremberg laws came out, the very anti-Jewish laws. So immediately you became a nobody, you became a non-citizen, you had no rights. We weren't allowed to go to concerts. You were not allowed to go to public meetings. Your parents lost business. It was tough. Being a feisty boy, I said to myself, I've got to go to that. Even though I wasn't allowed to go, yeah? I mean, 400th anniversary, I want to see that. My mother said, you will not go. You'll be beaten up. I mean, you're not allowed to go to the opera, absolutely not. I got a ticket. I don't know how. I got myself a ticket. I sat up in the last row, and I wasn't beaten up. Who would recognize me? But my parents were aghast, yes? But I did that on my own. It's quite unbelievable, but I did. And that was my fight against Hitler. I'll show him who can go to the opera, who can't. So obviously that was always in me, yeah? My mother had foresight. She took me out of school at the age of 14. Against my will, mind you, I quite liked school. She sent me to Baden-Baden, to a Jewish hotel, as an apprentice chef at the age of 14. I think it was a wise move. She said, before we leave, you have to learn a trade. And I lived in Baden-Baden. I worked there for 9 months as a young chef, and I learned a lot in that time. Horrible. I mean, most men were arrested. My father wasn't. They come to your house, they smash everything to pieces. It was absolutely horrendous. I saw the neighbors being taken out with SS men beating them as they were taking them to the car. It was horrendous. From that moment on, we knew we have to get out. Being taken to the train by your parents and saying goodbye, it was very, very sad. You did not know would you ever see them again. And not only that, your mother sent you away to a strange country. You didn't know the language. It was very difficult. The train journey itself was traumatic. Remember, in my train, there were possibly over 150 children. Now, when I say children, I'm talking of 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, who had never been away from their mother and father before. Not only that, their mother and father handed them over into the train. They didn't cry, they were howling. It was, the first few hours were horrendous. Myself, having been away in Baden-Baden for 9 months, having been away from home, working somewhere, I could take it better. I had been away before. I could cope with it. These children, it was tremendous. The train reached Holland after, let's say, 6 hours. The Nazi guards left the compartments. The train crossed the frontier. The minute we got into Holland, even the children who had no idea where they're going or what is happening, the pressure of the Nazis lifted from our shoulders. All of a sudden, we felt free. It's crazy to say, but even the 7 and 8 year old stopped howling. They realized something is going on. This is different. We were taken, the three of us went into the dining car, and you believe it or not, the waiters wore white cotton gloves, hot chocolate out of silver. I mean, the first impression were absolutely fantastic. This is like paradise. I came to Glasgow. I was taken by Mrs. Harwich to her home. I settled down there very nicely. Glasgow was a bit of a grey city in these days, but people were kind. There was never any trouble that you're German or you're Jewish. So I went to school here. Things went very well for me. I was extremely fortunate. The lady that guaranteed for me, a lady in late 60s, 70, Mrs. Etta Harwich, who herself came in 1890-something from one of the eastern states, from Latvia, to Britain. So here she takes, her family was growing up, he had grandchildren, so here she takes another refugee boy, which I think was particularly fantastic. It was all new to me. We had horses, we made hay, we picked potatoes. I went to school, Perth Academy. They didn't take me. My English wasn't good enough. They sent me to a junior secondary school, Balhousie Boys School, Perth. Okay, I was a couple of years older than the kids there. The headmaster, Mr. Borthwick, I remember his name because he nurtured me. He looked after me. I was the only foreign boy in that school of about 60, 80 boys. It was marvelous. I learned English. I could do things. We did Macbeth. Now, I knew nothing about Shakespeare, nothing about Macbeth. I knew about Goethe and Schiller, come from a different background. But Macbeth absolutely captured me. To this day, I can quote whole passages of Macbeth. Out and out, brief candle, life is but a walking child, etc., etc. So this really gripped me. But I had a marvelous time. Evacuation, we lived. People were kind. There was no anti-Semitism, nothing that they were German. I mean, we went to school by bicycle. We lived in a village called Forgandenny, and this was just before Dunkirk. The army had blocked certain roads with big cement things. So we came to that. So, you have to stop, obviously. So the corporal asks you, have you identity? Well, of course I had identity. I had a card, an identity card, nationality German. Well, that poor soldier, he nearly wetted himself. I mean, he was asked to look for, here is a boy on a back. He says he's German. He sent for the sergeant, he sent for the officer. He said, let the boy go to school. But I mean, the excitement that created. My parents lived in Nuremberg to the best they could. My father died of a heart attack in about 1944. Then my mother was taken away by Catholic friends and hidden in a village in the country, somewhere near Nuremberg, near Bamberg, by some very good Catholic friends we had. And eventually she was discovered by a British soldier, and he wrote me a letter, a fellow by the name of Stern. I think he was a Jewish boy himself. And obviously, once she was discovered and she came back to Nuremberg, her flat was destroyed with bombing. And being a very powerful and feisty woman, with this Catholic friend, she went across the road and she told a Nazi woman to get out of that flat, and she moved in. She literally commandeered that flat, and she did. You come here as a refugee, but I was given every opportunity here. I was sent to school by this kind lady. There was no shortage of jobs during the war. There was no problem with employment. If you behaved yourself, you got advanced, and I enjoyed it. And we made a life, and then I got married, and then we had children eventually, and we founded a family. I feel British. I feel Scottish in a way, but I come with another cultural background. I'm living with two cultures, which is is fantastic in a way. It's much wider, yes? If somebody asks me, where do you come from? I'm British, yes? Okay, I come originally, I'm not born here, but I feel very British and Scottish.